Good noon, and thank you for joining us on the Brown Shag Carpet once again. My name is Drew. I am the host in their home. Um, this is Corey and Lori. Say hi to the people at home. Hi,
Hello, the people.
Hello. What are we going to be talking about today?
We're continuing our series of teaching a biblical worldview. Today is Jesus in media. Haha.
Yeah.
Why would we do media? That's like not even applicable to anything that we do.
Yes, but we've talked about you listening to those bands, and we've decided that it wouldn't happen anymore.
I like those bands. I'm still stuck in the 2000s.
That's fine. Yeah, no, media is a huge part of our lives. It's a huge part of the influences on our family, and a huge part of the influences on our kids, and a huge part of what determines normal for our kids and the voices that they get to hear, and how we bring that into our life, how we see Jesus in that, how we insist that our relationship with Jesus be a part of that is a huge part of who we are as a family.
Yeah, and we're going to focus today on TV or shows and music and print media. We will tackle social media as a whole separate episode. So yeah.
So let's talk the easy ones first. So let's talk. I say easy. Let's
Yeah.
talk. Let's talk music
Let's
first.
Let's talk.
music first. All right.
Maybe
I
I picked
have
the
other
hard one.
songs going through my head about let's talk about. But anyway.
So we can talk about music that's obviously a bad idea. And
You know.
so it's interesting. We as a family have probably a different approach to music than a lot of families. We think it's a well thought out approach to music. It certainly is a soapbox for me, and has been
Definite
for a
soapbox.
lot of years. It's actually become easier in recent years. For a lot of years, music fell into for a lot of years, music wasn't defined in any camp at all. And then we sort of came up with the Christian music camp,
Label, right? The official label.
and now things have gotten successfully muddy again a little bit. I think it would certainly be my perspective that the late 80s, 90s, early 2000s bright line between Christian music and secular music was a distraction that allowed a lot of Christians to swallow some music that probably had really bad theology because it came out on the right music label, instead of actually doing the chew before you swallow thing with music.
Right.
I probably just really heavily colored my perspective.
Oh, so very. But we're not very surprised, and that's okay. It's your show. So we're just going to talk about, like I said, how we've kind of done music in our house. And so music is a big deal. Corey is ADD and needs noise all of the time.
I know nothing about what that's
Yeah.
Yeah, Drew is too, for the record.
Yeah, and
So,
it drives me a little insane because I function in quiet. So, marriage, compromise, whatever. But music is a very frequent sound in our house. Therefore, when the kids were little, I can remember that was probably, for each of them, one of their first main purchases, like big spending, was to buy an iPod Shuffle.
we uncovered the little bitty iPod
little
Shuffle
square.
that belonged to Heather
Yeah, the other day. Yeah.
It's a big deal.
So getting their own and having control of that was a super big deal. And so Corey had a method of working with them on what was allowed to go onto that shuffle. What did you have them do?
So they had to actually be able to pick several songs and walk me through the lyrics of the song, what the song lyrics meant, whether they were quote unquote Christian music or otherwise, to show me that they were capable of processing lyrically what a song meant, what it was for, what it was espousing as truth, and figure out how that fit with what we believe as Christians.
Right. And it's not that it had to be a Christian song. It just needed to be morally appropriate as well.
And if it was a Christian song, it had to have appropriate theology.
Right.
And without calling anybody out, not all Christian label music that comes out shares our theology and understanding of who
Well,
Jesus is.
and sometimes a word is used for a rhyme that doesn't actually mean what we think it means. Not that the word is wrong, but that it changes the concept from something, oh yeah, we totally think that, to wait a minute, if I think about that, that is not what we believe. And we just sing it because it's singing.
Okay, I wasn't going to call anybody out, but I'm going to pick one. For example, we're actually sitting in the studio where we do Rabbit Creek worship recordings, and it is far from uncommon for us to unpack a Rabbit Creek worship song and talk about what it actually says. Carrie Job is a fantastic worship leader who has a song that came out that was really popular, and one of the taglines in the song is, "The cross has the final word." And though I'm smart enough to process what she means,
Sure.
that's not true. The cross definitely doesn't have the final word. In fact, the whole story of Easter is that it doesn't. I get what she's saying, but that's not a line I want my kids repeating. And so, yeah, so being able to understand music and understand what it says and process it and chew before they swallow with music was a huge hurdle
Right.
for us as a family.
Well, and that research frequently even went into who is the band? What does the band believe? What is their lifestyle? And it actually made me think when you said this, as our kids have gotten older and picked their own clothing and they want to buy a popular brand or something like that, we've had them actually research what does that brand actually stand for? Things like that.
I did this to Drew last week.
What did you do?
Your God the Father shirt.
Oh, yeah, you did. And I'm not one of their kids, although I'm old enough, they are old enough, that I totally could be. But I have a brand deal with a company who is looking for sponsors, and it is a Christian company, and it is called God the Father. Not that I'm plugging anything right now. Definitely check out their stuff. It's really cool. But I went to show Corey, and Corey looks at it and goes, "What does that mean? What is the whole? What do they stand behind?" And I went and I looked, and I didn't realize you were doing that to me. So
Straight
thanks.
up, he will do it.
To his credit,
everyone.
he was right, and their belief statement was fantastic. But like,
do they have a God the Mother shirt? Because I want that one.
Maybe. I'm pretty sure they
We
have
can
an
have that
women's shirt.
We can have that conversation later.
another whole episode.
I know. All right. So, but our kids need to be able. We need to be able to understand what we're putting in our minds, because we just sing things without thinking, and it's stuck in there.
It's funny. Mark actually, at the time of the original recording, because this is definitely our second take. Not that they need to know that, but I have a loud mouth. Mark had just preached a message on what you retain, and he was talking about songs from when he was a kid that he's listening to now. Whoa, that is, and my parents do the same thing, and I find that hilarious. Listening to old hair bands.
And so you'd think the same thing here is to say we're just going to expose our kids to Christian music or to worship music, and I would like to close this by challenging that, because there are a lot, worship is huge, and as a believer, worship is a massive
Worshiping
priority.
through music. Worship happens in more ways than just music.
Valid. Worshiping through music is a massive part of my devotional life, but music means more to me than that. Music is also how we teach our kids about romance and how it is to have a love relationship and what does it look like to cherish someone. A lot of those concepts are tied up in music. And they're things that we've historically, as a human species, taught through music. So just to throw that out the window because we don't want to chew before we swallow musically is...
So Corey is going to chat with Drew about some bands that he really loves that have great lyrics, and they talk about a wide variety of things that could take us a year. And you will notice he is very particular in his music style when you look those bands up. So let's talk about TV in our house. Same thing. They were challenged to say, what is this show about? One of our big rules was the main characters needed to be their age. So they didn't, when they're in elementary or middle school, they didn't need to be watching TV shows deemed appropriate about high schoolers who were having high school dating relationships that we may or may not agree with how they were dating anyway. But if they're in elementary school, they need to watch shows about elementary schoolers. And even beyond that, how were those characters interacting with one another? You had a couple of things.
It'll be about a minute and a half when you start doing that before you realize that our society woos younger kids with the relationships of older kids, and the humor in those older kids shows tends to be pitched at kids who are 4 and 5 and 6 years younger than the kids who are being depicted on screen, which is problematic because now we have third graders watching high school relationships, and that's not appropriate.
Right.
We really struggled with what was a good show, which taught good lessons. There's a whole scourge of dad roles in modern comedy. I challenge you to find a modern dad in a dad show who's not a moron. It's really difficult to do. Homer Simpson, which we weren't a Simpsons family, but Homer Simpson on down. We'll pray for you.
My family wasn't. I just was.
Good Luck Charlie is actually a pretty clean, pretty good show. Humor, concept, right idea, right ages for where our kids were. Didn't make me want to pull my eyeballs out. Dad's an absolute moron as a theme in the show.
Well, and mom was overbearing and things like that. So, which doesn't give a good view of marriage. So you want to be careful of those things. And one of the ways to gauge that is, how do your kids behave after watching that show? How do they treat one another? How do they speak to you or to your husband? Or what are their expectations? Things like that, because it rubs off.
And you can teach your kids to deal with those shows
Sure.
by sitting around afterwards and going, all right, well, like, how would that have gone differently in our family? And why would that have gone differently in our family? And man, that was really funny, but what's something that as a believer you wish you could teach that family that would make their lives better, right? And then now we begin to actually unpack, like, how do we take the things that we learned, that we live, that we believe, and share them with others, granted in a fictitious way.
That's exactly applying your biblical worldview. I mean, that's 100% what that's doing.
And it's a great way to be able to teach your kids to engage with those shows and think about what they're learning and what's going down there.
So just super, super fast. The same rules apply to books that our kids read. How old are the main characters? What are they going through in life? Is this something that as you read it and you pay that close of attention to it, is it going to take you down or is it going to lift you up? Those same concepts.
So there are a lot of websites that are really helpful for this. I'll leave you one here, and Drew can pull this up. But Common Sense Media does a wonderful job of breaking down shows and perspectives and things like that, and giving you issues that are going to pop up as a believing family that you can reference and sort of know what's coming before you get into it. We'd probably be amiss at this point if we were talking about media for Christian families to say we are halfway through the Chosen series 1. And having a blast with it. It is not intended to be scripture in the form of a TV show,
Right.
but it is a wonderful take on the story of Jesus that we've had a lot of fun discussing. What do we like? What do we don't like? What do we don't like? Anyway, what do we dislike?
Well, and to be honest, it's taken us this long to watch it because we just assumed it was awful. Because generally, cinematography on biblical stuff just tends to be either poorly done or poorly written or whatever. And we finally watched the episode and we're just blown away.
It's really well done. It's good stuff.
It's super interesting, but it breeds conversation because you have to remember, this isn't scripture.
No,
this is storytelling from...
And we would no more tell you to take that lock, stock, and barrel than anything else
not.
we're discussing. This is a great thing that you should watch, discuss as a family, decide what you think fits biblically, and chew before you swallow.
Absolutely. So, while you're chewing before you swallow, that's the end of this episode.
So where are your kids? And are you watching this with your kids?
I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
That'd be real awkward.
Younger brothers and sisters who you referred to as pets last time, and you're still
You
in
got
trouble
in
with
trouble.
your
Sorry, Mom.
Got in trouble. All right. Have a great day. See
See
y'all
you
later.
soon.